Well, it is a story that everybody has been talking about, and you are only going to see it right here on Eyewitness News. Last night, we revealed the disturbing results of a recent study indicating elevated levels of several toxic chemicals being found in crude oil from the Deepwater Horizon showing up in people's blood. So how's it getting there? The leading scientist in charge of the study says the chemicals in question can leach into a person's skin, they can be inhaled, or they can be ingested. And that third possibility, eating it, is what concerns researchers the most, because they contend that sensory studies, so-called sniff tests conducted by state and federal governments, were not enough to determine if Gulf seafood is safe to eat or not.
Right, and a lot of the tissue samples that we collected and analyzed didn't have an odor and didn't have visible oil, but yet had huge quantities within the tissue of both the hydrocarbons and the polynuclear aromatic hydrocarbons.
Suber says she's worried about the cumulative effects of those chemicals building up in the body. She also says the Food and Drug Administration's current safe consumption guideline for Gulf shrimp, get a load of this, is based on a 175-pound man who eats no more than 4 to 6 shrimp per week.
The question now is what animals were included in that study. Well, KLFY TV 10 Eyewitness News anchor Julie Darcy explains.
In August, chemists prepared a patrol boat, and they made a total of 9 sampling trips from the western edge of Terrebonne Parish to the Louisiana-Mississippi line and collected over 50 samples. And of all the seafood they tested, here's a list of the top 5 with the highest amount of petroleum hydrocarbons. At number 5 is fiddler crabs, or periwinkles or snails out of Terrebonne Parish. Number 4 is shrimp from St. Bernard Parish. Number 3, oysters from Terrebonne Parish. Number 2, oysters from Plaquemines Parish. And the seafood with the highest amount of petroleum hydrocarbons, or about 21,000 milligrams, was found in the flounder and speckled trout collected from St. Bernard Parish. For KLFY TV 10 Eyewitness News, I'm Julie Darcy.
Now, lean officials said the seafood tested had no visible signs of contamination, nor did it have an unusual odor. Governor Bobby Jindal also weighed in on this study, and we'll hear from him tonight at 10 on Eyewitness News.
That study raises some serious questions about the safety not only of seafood, but of the coastline and marshes around the Gulf as well. But for all the questions that the study raises about safety, it also raises a few about the study itself. KLFY TV 10 Eyewitness News reporter Sean McGinnis now joins us live with more on that. Sean.
Thanks, Chuck. Well, this study done by the Louisiana Environmental Action Network shows unusually high levels of a chemical used in oil dispersants during the oil spill, and also unusually high levels of hydrocarbons from petroleum in seafood. But not everyone is convinced of the danger just yet. A study organized by the Louisiana Environmental Action Network suggests that not only is seafood possibly contaminated, but that people may be as well. UL Lafayette professor Paul Clerks is an expert in environmental toxicology, and he says the high levels of ethylbenzene found in human patients is alarming, but he doesn't believe it's reason to panic just yet.
This is potentially cause for concern, but it's a very small sample size, only 5 people, and it's really hard to tell with just a small sample size what it really means as a whole.
Clerks said he'd also like to know which area the tested seafood was collected from. Lean Director Mary Lee Orr says most of the seafood tested came from uncontaminated areas. The Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries has seen the study and denies the conclusions from it completely. In an email sent to TV10, the WLF said they closed oil-contaminated areas and kept fishermen out, didn't reopen contaminated areas until seafood was found to be safe, haven't found any contaminated seafood, and will continue to test seafood in the coming years. Essentially, the WLF says there is no danger on the coast or in seafood in open fishing areas. On the other hand, Clerks says these tests may be cause for concern, but more tests need to be done.
They do point out potential issues, but we need to do a lot more research for both of those areas. At this point, we need to do a lot more sampling to get a better idea of really how important these issues are that are brought up in these studies.
But until those studies can be done, Clerks gave a word of advice to seafood lovers.
I would say buy seafood from reputable sources. Don't go out and collect it yourself in areas that you're not really sure about that are open for harvesting.
We'll have much more coming up on this study tonight on Eyewitness News at 10. Reporting live in studio, I'm Sean McGinnis, KLFY TV 10, Eyewitness News.
Thanks, Sean. Turning to other news now, District Attorney Mike Harson met with HUD officials earlier today to discuss legal matters regarding the Lafayette Housing Authority. Harson had